Why did the bank ask me if I was sure I was myself? How did a routine call about my account turn into a moment where my wife stood next to another man who looked like me? This is how I learned the truth, standing in a place built on signatures and trust. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The kit roared was still dark when my phone rang that Tuesday morning. I was pouring coffee, watching the forecast models update on my laptop. Rain was coming in from the west, a low-pressure system I'd been tracking for 3 days. The call came from a number I recognized, my bank's regional office. Mr. Trevan? The voice was professional, careful. This is Eleanor Briggs from First National. I'm calling to verify a transaction. I set down the coffee pot. What kind of transaction? A withdrawal yesterday afternoon. $12,000. Cash. I felt my hand tighten on the phone. I didn't make any withdrawal yesterday. There was a pause. I could hear papers shuffling on her end. Mr. Trevan, I understand this might be confusing, but we have documentation. The withdrawal was processed in person at our main branch. I was at the weather station all day yesterday. I didn't go anywhere near the bank. Another pause, longer this time. Sir, I need to ask, are you certain about your whereabouts yesterday between 2 and 3 p.m.? Absolutely certain. I was giving a presentation on storm tracking to a group of meteorology students. 15 people saw me there. The silence that followed felt heavy, deliberate. Mr. Trevan, this is unusual. The withdrawal was approved after proper identification was presented. Your wife was also present during the transaction. My wife, Dahlia. My wife was there? I kept my voice steady, meteorologist calm. Did she make the withdrawal? No, sir. You did. At least the person who presented your identification did. I stood there and my kit roared, coffee cooling beside me, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Ms. Briggs, I need you to understand something. I did not go to the bank yesterday. I did not withdraw any money, and I have no idea what you're talking about. I see. Her tone had shifted, becoming more formal. Mr. Trevan, I think it would be best if you came into the branch today. We need to sort this out. I'll be there at 9. I hung up and stared at my phone. The weather models were still updating on my laptop screen, showing the approaching storm system in detail. Pressure gradients, wind speeds, precipitation forecasts, all the data I needed to predict what was coming. But this I hadn't seen approaching at all. I tried calling Dahlia. Her phone went straight to voicemail. The weather station was quiet when I arrived at 7:30. I had 2 hours before I needed to be at the bank, and I wanted to document everything from yesterday. My calendar showed the student presentation clearly. 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., classroom B12. I pulled up the attendance sheet, printed it, folded it into my jacket pocket. Cedric? My colleague Hayes stopped by my desk, coffee in hand. You look stressed. Everything okay? Bank issue, I said simply. Some kind of mistake with my account? He laughed. That's what you get for actually having money to worry about. I'm still paying off my car. I managed a smile, but my mind was elsewhere. Hayes walked away, and I pulled up my transaction history on the bank's website. There it was. Yesterday, 2:47 p.m. Withdrawal, $12,000. Location, Main Street branch. But I'd been in classroom B12, teaching students how to read pressure systems. I opened my email and started going through yesterday's messages. Nothing unusual. A few routine work exchanges, a reminder about next week's department meeting, a spam email about vacation rentals. Then I noticed something in my sent folder. An email I didn't remember sending. To Dahlia Trevan. Subject, today, sent. Yesterday, 1:47 p.m. Just see you at 2:30. I never sent that email. I never wrote those words. My hands were steady as I took a screenshot, saved it, printed it. I was good at collecting data. That's what meteorologists do. We gather information, we analyze patterns, we predict outcomes. This was just another system to track. I called Rhett Weller. He'd been my mentor when I first started in meteorology before he retired and went into legal consulting. We'd stayed in touch over the years, occasional dinners, the odd bit of advice when I needed it. Cedric? He sounded surprised. It's been a while. I need to talk to you about something, not weather-related. Sounds serious. It might be. Can we meet this afternoon? Come by my office at 3. I'll clear my schedule. The bank was crowded when I arrived at 9. I stood in the lobby, looking around at the marble floors, the high ceilings, the teller windows where people conducted their ordinary business. Everything looked normal. Everything felt wrong. Eleanor Briggs met me at the reception desk. She was tall, gray-haired, with the kind of professional demeanor that came from decades of handling other people's money and problems. "Mr. Trevan, thank you for coming in." She gestured toward the offices in the back. "Let's talk in private." We walked past the teller windows, past the customer service desks, into a small conference room with glass walls. She closed the door and offered me a seat. "I've been reviewing the security footage from yesterday," she said, settling into her chair. "And I need to ask you something directly. Do you have a twin brother?" "No." She opened a folder on the table and turned it toward me. Inside was a printed screenshot from the security camera. The image quality wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. A man who looked like me stood at a teller window. Dahlia stood beside him. I stared at the image. The man had my height, my build, my hair color. He was wearing a jacket similar to one I owned. From a distance, with the camera angle, I could see how someone might mistake him for me. "That's not me," I said. "I believe you." Eleanor leaned back in her chair. "But we have a problem. This man presented identification. He had your driver's license, your account information, your signature, and your wife vouched for him. Where is Dahlia now?" "I don't know. She left with him after the transaction." I looked at the image again, at my wife standing next to a stranger wearing my identity. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking down at her phone, her expression neutral. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Proof that you are who you say you are, and an explanation for how someone else had your identification." I pulled out my wallet, laid my driver's license on the table. "This is my license. The one in your system yesterday must have been fake." Eleanor picked it up, examined it carefully. "This looks legitimate." "Because it is." I pulled out my phone, opened my calendar. Here's yesterday's schedule. I was at the weather station from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. I can provide witness statements from 15 people who saw me give a presentation between 2 and 4. She was taking notes now, her expression focused. "I'll need all of that documented." I brought the attendance sheet. I handed it to her. "And I can get signed statements from my colleagues." "Good. That's good." She looked up at me. "Mr. Trevan, I want you to understand something. This bank takes fraud very seriously. If someone is impersonating you, we need to involve the authorities." "I understand. But first, I need to verify your identity beyond any doubt. Can you come back tomorrow with additional documentation, birth certificate, passport, anything that establishes your identity independently?" "I can do that." She closed the folder. "One more thing. Do you know a Marcus Halden?" The name meant nothing to me. "No. Should I?" "That's the name your wife used when she introduced the man in the security footage. She called him Marcus." I sat in my car in the bank parking lot, rain tapping the windshield right on schedule. My professional life followed patterns I could predict. My personal life apparently had been a lie. Marcus Halden. I searched the name. Nothing useful. A few social profiles, none matching the man from the security footage. I saved it in my notes and drove back. The weather station felt safe, my territory. Here, I was known. "Cedric," Mara said in the hallway, "your wife called. She said she's staying with her sister for a few days." "Which sister?" I asked. "She didn't say. Everything okay?" "Just personal matters." Dahlia didn't have a sister. At my desk, I reviewed 6 months of records, bank statements, credit cards, phone bills, looking for patterns. I found them. Restaurant charges I'd never visited, gas stations I didn't use, weekday hotel stays, all on our joint card, all signed with my name. I printed everything and filed it. Evidence, facts. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Stop making trouble. This doesn't concern you." I screenshot it and added it to the folder. At 3, I drove to Rhett Weller's office downtown. Unremarkable building, sharp mind inside. He taught me patience, observation, and how to stay calm when everything was falling apart. "Cedric." He shook my hand, gestured me into his office. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse. I've seen someone else living my life." I told him everything. The bank call, the withdrawal, the security footage, the man named Marcus Halden standing where I should have been. Rhett listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "And your wife was with him?" "Standing right next to him. According to the bank manager, she introduced him as Marcus." "Do you have access to your joint accounts?" "Online, yes. But I haven't tried to make any changes." "Don't. Not yet." Rhett tapped his pen on the desk. "If this is what I think it is, you need to be very careful. Any action you take now could complicate things later." "What do you think it is?" "Identity fraud, obviously. But with your wife's involvement, it might be more complex. Has she been acting differently lately?" I thought about it. Dahlia had always been distant, focused on her work, her consulting projects that took her out of town for days at a time. But lately, she'd been more secretive. More phone calls in other rooms, more unexplained absences. "She's been gone more," I said, "but I thought it was work." "It might have been, just not the kind of work you thought." Rhett wrote something on his pad. "Here's what you're going to do. You're going to document everything, but you're not going to confront anyone. You're going to act like nothing has changed." "Why?" "Because right now, they think they're getting away with it. And people who think they're getting away with something get careless." I drove home in the rain, watching the wipers move back and forth across the windshield. The storm was intensifying, just like the forecast predicted. Low pressure system, high winds, steady precipitation. By tonight, we'd have flooding in the low-lying areas. The house was empty when I got there. No Dahlia, no note, no explanation. I walked through the rooms, looking at everything with new eyes. The furniture we'd picked out together, the photos on the walls, the life we'd supposedly built. All of it felt hollow now. In my home office, I created a new folder on my computer. Documentation, I labeled it. Inside, I started organizing everything. Bank statements, credit card records, screenshots of messages, the attendance sheet from yesterday's presentation, the email I never sent. I added a new document and started typing a timeline. Every anomaly I could remember from the past 6 months. Every time Dahlia had been vague about her whereabouts. Every charge on the credit card that didn't make sense. The patterns emerged slowly, but they were there, like a weather system developing over time, building pressure, gaining strength. My phone rang. Dahlia. "Hi," she said, her voice casual. "Mara said you called." "I didn't call. She said you called the office." "Oh, right. I just wanted to let you know I'm staying at a friend's place for a few days. Work stuff." "Which friend?" "You don't know her. Someone from the consulting firm." I looked at my computer screen, at the timeline I was building. "When are you coming back?" "Maybe Friday. I'll let you know." She paused. "Is everything okay? You sound weird." "Just tired. Long day." "Well, get some rest. I'll talk to you later." She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there in my office, listening to the rain against the windows. Outside, the storm was doing exactly what I'd predicted it would do. Inside, I was beginning to understand the pattern of a different kind of storm entirely. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "Last warning." I took a screenshot, added it to the folder, and went back to work. Rain drummed through the night as I sat in my office organizing evidence. This part came naturally, collecting data, tracing patterns. Meteorology had trained me to find order in chaos. By midnight, the picture was clear. Dahlia had been lying for at least 8 months. Credit card charges, unexplained absences, vague explanations, all aligned. Somewhere in that time, she'd met Marcus Halden. I combed through her social media. Months of harmless posts, coffee shops, sunsets, conferences. Then I noticed metadata on one photo, a city restaurant posted 6 months ago. Caption, "Great meeting today." I checked the date against our credit card statement. No charge. Someone else had paid. I added it to the timeline and kept going. At 2 a.m., I found more. A property search showed an apartment lease in Dahlia's name, signed 4 months earlier. An address I didn't recognize across town. I leaned back, staring at the screen. My wife had a second apartment, hidden, unmentioned, absent from our shared finances, which meant she was paying for it with money I couldn't trace. The next morning, I went to the bank with everything Eleanor Briggs had requested. Birth certificate, passport, social security card, employment records from the weather station. I laid it all out on her desk like evidence at a trial. "This is comprehensive," she said, reviewing each document carefully. "I think we can definitively establish your identity now." "Good. What happens next?" "We file a fraud report. We freeze the accounts involved. We work with law enforcement to identify the person who impersonated you." "And my wife?" Eleanor's expression didn't change. "If she was complicit in the fraud, that's a matter for the authorities." "I want the joint accounts frozen," I said, "effective immediately." "That's well within your rights, but it will alert anyone with access to those accounts." "I know." She pulled up the account information on her computer. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Trevan? Once I do this, there's no going back quietly." I thought about Dahlia standing next to Marcus in the security footage, introducing him as me, watching while he withdrew $12,000 in cash. I thought about the secret apartment, the hidden expenses, the 8 months of lies. "I'm sure." Eleanor typed something, clicked a few buttons. "Done. The accounts are frozen. Any attempt to access them will be flagged and reported to me directly." "Thank you." "Mr. Trevan?" She looked at me over her reading glasses. I've been doing this job for 27 years. I've seen a lot of fraud cases, but I've never seen one quite like this. What do you mean? Most identity theft is random. Stolen credit cards, hacked accounts, strangers trying to make quick money. This is different. This is personal. I nodded. I know. Be careful. I spent the rest of the day at the weather station, tracking the storm system and pretending everything was normal. My colleagues treated me the same way they always had, with mild respect and occasional indifference. I was Cedric Trevan, the reliable one, the boring one, the guy who showed up every day and did his job without drama. They had no idea what was happening beneath the surface. At lunch, Hayes sat down across from me in the break room. Hey, did you sort out that bank thing? Getting there, I said. Good. Hey, I saw Dahlia last week at that new restaurant downtown, the expensive Italian place. She was with some guy, figured it was a work thing. I kept my voice neutral. When was this? Thursday, I think. Yeah, Thursday night. Around 8. I was picking up takeout. Thursday night. I'd been home alone, watching weather patterns on my laptop, thinking Dahlia was at a conference in the next state. Probably a client, I said. Yeah, that's what I figured. Hayes took a bite of his sandwich. She looked happy, though, laughing a lot. Nice to see her relaxed. I finished my coffee and threw the cup away. Yeah, nice. That afternoon, I drove past the address I'd found for the apartment. It was a modern building, sleek and expensive looking, with a doorman and a lobby full of designer furniture. The kind of place that required serious money to maintain. I didn't go inside. I just drove past, noting the details, adding them to my mental inventory. At 5 o'clock, I called Rhett Weller. I found something, I said. Dahlia has a second apartment. Are you certain? Lease is in her name, signed 4 months ago. There was a pause. Cedric, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. What do you want to happen here? I want the truth. And then what? I thought about it. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? An explanation? All of the above? I want them to know I'm not as stupid as they think I am, I said finally. Rhett was quiet for a moment. All right, then here's what we do. We don't confront anyone. We don't make accusations. We just keep gathering evidence and let them dig their own hole deeper. How long? As long as it takes. They'll make a mistake eventually. They always do. That night, I got a call from Dahlia. The credit cards aren't working, she said without preamble. Did you forget to pay the bill? No, I paid it. Well, something's wrong. I tried to use it at dinner and it was declined. I let the silence stretch. Where are you having dinner? Just a restaurant, with a colleague. Which restaurant? Does it matter? Her voice had an edge now. Can you just fix the card situation? I'll look into it tomorrow. Cedric, I need it fixed tonight. Why? What's the emergency? Another pause. Never mind. I'll use my other card. She hung up. I sat in my dark living room, listening to the rain that was still falling from the storm system I'd predicted days ago. Everything was proceeding according to forecast, the low pressure, the precipitation, the wind patterns. And now, finally, I was beginning to predict the pattern of Dahlia's storm, too. The fraud report moved through official channels slowly, deliberately, exactly the way institutional processes always moved. Eleanor Briggs called me twice that week with updates. The police had been notified, the security footage had been handed over, an investigation had been opened. Meanwhile, I went to work every day, tracked weather systems, gave presentations, maintained the appearance of normalcy. Rhett had been right. The key was patience. Don't give them any reason to think you know, he'd told me during our second meeting. Let them believe they're in control. So I did. When Dahlia called asking about the frozen accounts, I told her it was a security issue, that the bank was sorting it out. When she asked when it would be resolved, I said I didn't know. When she got frustrated, I stayed calm. It's just bureaucracy, I said. You know how these things are? Well, it's incredibly inconvenient. I'm sure it is. She came home on Friday, 3 days after the accounts were frozen. I was in my office when I heard her car in the driveway. She walked in with her overnight bag, dropped it by the stairs, came to find me. Hey, she said from the doorway. Hey, you look busy. Just finishing up some reports. I minimized the window I'd been working in, the timeline of her lies, the documentation of the fraud. How was your week? Exhausting. The consulting project is more complicated than we thought. I nodded, watching her face. She looked tired, but there was something else there too. Tension, wariness. Did you fix the credit card situation? She asked. The bank is still investigating. They think there might have been some fraudulent activity on the account. Her expression didn't change. What kind of fraud? They didn't give me details, just said they needed to verify some transactions. That's weird. Yeah. I turned back to my computer. They said it might take a few weeks to sort out. She stood there for a moment longer, then went upstairs. I heard the shower start, heard her moving around in the bedroom. When she came back down an hour later, she was dressed for going out. I'm meeting some people for dinner, she said. Don't wait up. On a Friday night? It's work-related. Okay. She left, and I waited exactly 10 minutes before I followed her. Surveillance wasn't difficult. Dahlia wasn't looking for a tail, wasn't taking precautions. She drove straight to the Italian restaurant Hayes had mentioned, the expensive one downtown. I parked across the street and watched. Marcus Halden met her at the entrance. Even from a distance, I could see the resemblance to me. Same height, same build, same hair color. But up close, the differences would be obvious. Different face, different walk, different everything except the superficial details. They went inside together. I sat in my car, taking photos with my phone, adding them to my evidence folder. An hour later, they came out. They were laughing, relaxed, completely at ease. Dahlia touched his arm, said something that made him smile. They walked to a car parked nearby, a newer model sedan, dark blue, expensive looking. They drove to the apartment I'd found in the property records. I followed at a distance, watched them go inside. I waited in my car for 20 minutes, then drove home. The next morning, I had breakfast with Hayes at a coffee shop near the weather station. Thanks for meeting me, I said. No problem. What's up? That night you saw Dahlia at the restaurant. The Thursday night. Can you tell me more about what you saw? Hayes looked uncomfortable. Man, I don't want to get involved in anything weird. You're not. I just need to know. He sighed. She was with a guy. Looked kind of like you, actually, from a distance. That's why I noticed them. I almost went over to say hi, but then I realized it wasn't you. What were they doing? Just having dinner, talking, laughing. They seemed close. How close? I don't know, man. They were sitting on the same side of the booth. Looked like they were together. I nodded. Okay, thanks. Cedric, if you need to talk about anything, I'm fine. Really. Just sorting some things out. That afternoon, Eleanor Briggs called. Mr. Trevan, we've made some progress on the investigation. The detective assigned to your case would like to meet with you. When? Monday morning, if that works for you. It works. There's something else, she said. We reviewed all the security footage from the past 6 months. Your wife has been to this branch 17 times with Mr. Halden, always presenting him as you. 17 times. I see. The detective will want to discuss this with you. The pattern suggests this has been going on for quite a while. Understood. Thank you, Eleanor. I hung up and sat in my office, looking at the weather maps on my screen. Another storm system was developing in the west, another low-pressure front moving in. I could track it, predict it, prepare for it. But I hadn't predicted this. 17 times. 17 visits to the bank. 17 times Dahlia had stood next to Marcus Halden and vouched for him as me. My phone buzzed. A text from Dahlia. Going out of town again tomorrow, back Wednesday. I didn't respond. That night I went to my filing cabinet and pulled out all our joint financial documents. Marriage certificate, property deeds, insurance policies. I spread them across my desk and started reading through every detail. And that's when I found it. A life insurance policy I'd forgotten about, taken out 5 years ago when we bought the house. $2 million, with Dahlia as the sole beneficiary. I sat back in my chair, staring at the document. $2 million. 17 visits to the bank. A man who looked like me. The pattern was becoming clear. The detective's name was Raymond Heron, and he had the kind of weathered face that came from seeing too much human dishonesty. We met in a conference room at the police station Monday morning, Eleanor Briggs sitting in as a witness from the bank. Mr. Trevan, Detective Heron said, shaking my hand, thank you for coming in. I've been reviewing your case, and I have to say it's one of the more elaborate fraud schemes I've seen. Elaborate how? He opened a folder on the table. Your wife and Mr. Halden have been working together for at least 8 months. The bank records show a pattern of escalating withdrawals, always with her present, always with him presenting himself as you. How much total? $63,000. I felt something cold settle in my chest. That much? Spread out over time. Small enough amounts to avoid triggering automatic fraud alerts, but large enough to add up. Eleanor spoke up. We've also found evidence of attempted loan applications in your name. They were denied due to credit issues, but the attempts were made. What kind of loans? Home equity line of credit. Personal loans. They were testing how far they could push the impersonation. Detective Heron pulled out another document. We've also been looking into Marcus Halden's background. He has a prior conviction for identity fraud in another state. Did 3 years in prison, got out 18 months ago. And Dahlia knew this? We believe so. They appear to have met through some online platform, though we're still tracking down the details. I sat there, processing this information. My wife had partnered with a convicted criminal to impersonate me and steal from our joint accounts. For 8 months, she'd been lying to my face, maintaining the appearance of a marriage while systematically betraying me. What happens now? I asked. We build the case. We gather evidence. When we have enough, we arrest them both. Detective Heron leaned forward. But I need to ask you something, Mr. Trevan. Do you feel safe at home? She doesn't resort to force. That's not what I asked. I thought about it. Did I feel safe? Did I trust Dahlia not to escalate if she figured out I knew? I'm careful, I said finally. Be more than careful. People who commit this kind of fraud, when they get cornered, they can become unpredictable. Eleanor added, We're also concerned about the life insurance policy you mentioned. That adds another dimension to this situation. You think they were planning something more serious than fraud? Detective Heron exchanged a glance with Eleanor. We can't speculate, but we're taking it seriously. He handed me a card. My direct number. You call me if anything happens, anything at all. Don't try to handle it yourself. I took the card, put it in my wallet next to Rhett Weller's. One more thing, the detective said. Don't let on that you know. Don't confront them. Just act normal and let us do our job. That's what my attorney said too. Smart attorney. I went back to work after the meeting, sat at my desk, and pulled up the weather models. A major storm system was developing, bigger than the last one. By the end of the week, we'd have severe weather across the entire region. Cedric? My supervisor, Margaret, stopped by my desk. You okay? You've seemed distracted lately. Just some personal stuff. Nothing that affects my work. I know, your work's been fine. Better than fine, actually. That presentation you gave last week, the students were really impressed. Thanks. I also wanted to let you know we're sending you to the Regional Meteorology Conference next month in Chicago. All expenses paid. That's great. You deserve it. You've been carrying a lot of the weight around here. She patted my shoulder. Take care of yourself. All right? After she left, I sat there thinking about the conference. A week in Chicago, presenting research, networking with other meteorologists. Under normal circumstances, I would have been excited, but these weren't normal circumstances. My phone buzzed, a text from Dahlia. Stuck in traffic. Won't be home until late. There's food in the fridge. I didn't respond. That night, I drove past the apartment again. Marcus's car was in the lot. Lights were on in a third-floor unit. I watched, documented, logged it into my mental inventory, then went home to an empty house and refined my timeline. The pattern was undeniable. 8 months of systematic fraud. $63,000 taken. Loan attempts in my name. A $2 million life insurance policy. And every night, Dahlia came home, kissed me hello, asked about my day, maintaining the fiction. I remembered Detective Heron's warning. People like this become unpredictable when cornered. But when they think they're winning, they get bold, careless, they make mistakes. On Wednesday, Dahlia came home. We talked and the kit roared. Her story sounded practiced, generic. She kissed my cheek. We ordered Chinese, discussed nothing important. I mentioned my upcoming conference in Chicago. She smiled, praised me, asked when. 3 weeks. She nodded, but something flickered in her eyes. Calculation. After dinner, she went upstairs. I checked my phone. Rhett Weller. How did the meeting with the detective go? They're building the case. Almost there, I replied. Good. Stay patient. Patience. Everyone said the same thing, but I was done being patient. I'd been patient for 8 months of lies. Patient while my identity was stolen. Patient while $63,000 disappeared. Now it was time to stop waiting and start being strategic. The bank scheduled an internal review meeting for the following Thursday. Eleanor Briggs called to give me the details. This is standard procedure in fraud cases of this magnitude, she said. The compliance team needs to review everything before we finalize the criminal complaint. Who will be there? Myself, the head of compliance, the bank's legal counsel, and Detective Heron. You'll need to present your documentation and answer some questions. And after that? After that, we move forward with pressing charges. I marked the date in my calendar. Thursday, 2 p.m. The same time Marcus had made the first withdrawal, standing at the teller window pretending to be me. The symmetry felt appropriate. That weekend, I organized everything in my home office. All the evidence, all the documentation, all the proof I'd gathered over the past 3 weeks. I created folders, labeled them clearly, made copies of everything. Bank statements showing the fraudulent withdrawals, security footage screenshots of Marcus and Dahlia at the bank, credit card records showing charges I never made, property records for the secret apartment, the life insurance policy with Dahlia as beneficiary, Detective Heron's preliminary investigation report, timeline of lies, documented and cross-referenced. I put it all in a lockbox and stored it in the back of my office closet. Then I scanned everything and uploaded it to a secure cloud drive. If something happened to me, the evidence would still exist. On Monday, Dahlia announced she was going to a professional conference. "It's in the city," she said over breakfast. "Just 2 days. I'll be back Wednesday night." "Which conference?" "Strategic consulting, something. You know how these things are, they all blur together." I nodded, eating my cereal. "Sounds good." After she left, I called the number on the business card she'd given me months ago, the one for her consulting firm. A receptionist answered. "Hi, I'm trying to reach Dahlia Trevan," I said. "I'm sorry, we don't have anyone by that name working here." "Are you sure? She's a senior consultant?" "I've been here 5 years, sir. We've never had a Dahlia Trevan." I thanked her and hung up. So that was another lie. The consulting firm, the business trips, the professional conferences, all fiction. I wondered how many other parts of her life were invented, how deep the deception went. I added it to my documentation. That afternoon, I met with Rhett Weller again. "The review meeting is Thursday," I told him. "After that, they'll file formal charges." "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine." He gave me a look. "Cedric, you don't have to be fine. This is a betrayal at the most fundamental level." "I know what it is." "Then let yourself feel something about it." I thought about that. What did I feel? Anger, yes. Hurt, definitely. But mostly I felt something else. Something colder and more focused. "I feel ready," I said. Rhett nodded slowly. "All right. But remember, after Thursday, this becomes very public. Your colleagues will know. Your friends will know. Everyone will know your wife was stealing from you." "I'm aware." "And you're okay with that?" I met his eyes. "I'm okay with the truth." On Tuesday, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Trevan?" A woman's voice, professional. "This is Naya from Metropolitan Life Insurance. I'm calling about your policy." "What about it?" "We received a claim inquiry last week. Standard procedure requires us to verify the policy details with the primary insured." My hand tightened on the phone. "What kind of claim inquiry?" "It wasn't a formal claim, just an inquiry about the claims process. Your wife called asking what documentation would be needed in the event of your passing." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "When did she call?" "Last Tuesday, the 5th, the day after I'd frozen the bank accounts." "And what did you tell her?" "Just the standard information. Certificate of passing, any official report if applicable, policy number, nothing specific." "I see. Thank you for letting me know." "Is everything all right, Mr. Trevan?" "Everything's fine. Just checking." I hung up and immediately called Detective Heron. "She's asking about the life insurance," I said when he answered. "She called the company asking about the claims process." "When?" "Last week, right after the accounts were frozen." There was a pause. "Mr. Trevan, I want you to be very careful. Don't be alone with her. Don't eat or drink anything she gives you. If you feel threatened in any way, you call 911 immediately." "You think she'd actually—" "I think people do desperate things when they're cornered. And $2 million is a lot of motivation." After that call, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the life insurance policy on my desk. $2 million. Enough to disappear, to start over somewhere else, to live comfortably for years. All they needed was for me to be gone. I thought about Marcus Halden's criminal record. Identity fraud, yes. But what else? What other crimes was he capable of? That night, I installed a new lock on my bedroom door. I bought a carbon monoxide detector and put it next to my bed. I started checking my car before I drove it anywhere, looking for anything unusual. I wasn't paranoid. I was being realistic. On Wednesday, Dahlia came home from her fake conference. She seemed agitated, distracted. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just tired. The conference was exhausting." "How was the hotel?" She blinked. "What? The hotel? Where you stayed?" "Oh, fine. It was fine." I nodded and went back to reading the weather reports on my laptop. A major storm system was still developing in the west. By next week, it would be here. Cedric? Dahlia stood in the doorway. Are you sure the bank thing is just a security issue? That's what they told me. It's been almost 2 weeks. I know. Well, can you call them? Push them to resolve it? I have a meeting with them on Thursday. They said they'd have answers then. She went quiet. A meeting? What kind of meeting? Just a review of the security measures, standard stuff. Do I need to be there? They didn't mention it. I think it's just me. She nodded slowly. Okay, let me know what they say. I will. After she left the room, I texted Rhett. She knows something's wrong. His response came back quickly. One more day. Stay calm. One more day until the review meeting. One more day until the evidence was presented, the charges filed, the truth exposed. I could last one more day. Thursday morning arrived with clear skies and unusually warm temperatures. The calm before the storm, literally and figuratively. I got dressed carefully, putting on my best suit, the one I usually reserved for important presentations. Today felt like it deserved formality. Dahlia was already up, making coffee, and the kit roared. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes. You're dressed up, she said. The bank meeting, remember? Right. She poured coffee into her mug. What time? 2:00. She nodded, but didn't say anything else. I noticed her hand was shaking slightly as she lifted the mug to her lips. Are you okay? I asked. Just didn't sleep well. I left the house at noon, earlier than I needed to. I drove to Rhett Weller's office first. He was waiting for me with another man I didn't recognize. Cedric, this is Drake Park. He's a civil attorney specializing in fraud cases. I asked him to review your situation. We shook hands. Drake was younger than Rhett, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a firm grip. Mr. Trevan, I've looked over everything Rhett sent me. You have an exceptionally strong case. The documentation is thorough, the evidence is clear, and the pattern of fraud is undeniable. Good. However, I need to prepare you for what comes after today. Once charges are filed, your wife will likely file for divorce. She'll try to claim ignorance, say she was manipulated by Marcus Holden. Will that work? Probably not. The security footage shows her actively participating. The bank records show her presence at 17 separate fraudulent transactions. No reasonable person would believe she didn't know what was happening. What about the life insurance inquiry? Drake's expression darkened. That's the most concerning element. It suggests intent beyond simple fraud. The detective will need to investigate whether they were planning something more serious. Rhett added, which is why we're going to recommend increased protection for you after today. Protection? At minimum, a restraining order. Possibly police surveillance if the detective thinks it's warranted. I looked at both of them. I just want this over. It will be, Rhett said. After today, the truth is out. No more hiding, no more pretending. We drove to the bank separately. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat in my car, watching people go in and out. Normal people conducting normal business, unaware of the small drama about to unfold in the conference room upstairs. At 5 minutes to 2, I went inside. Eleanor Briggs met me in the lobby. Mr. Trevan, right on time. She gestured toward the elevators. Everyone's already upstairs. We rode up in silence. The conference room was on the 3rd floor, a large space with windows overlooking the city. Detective Heron was there, along with 2 people I didn't know, a man in his 60s with steel gray hair, and a woman about my age with a tablet in front of her. Mr. Trevan, Detective Heron said, standing to shake my hand. This is Lennon Roard, head of compliance, and Brielle Foster, the bank's legal counsel. We all took our seats around the table. Eleanor sat across from me, a thick folder in front of her. Let's begin, Lennon Roard said. We're here to review the fraud case involving Mr. Trevan's accounts and the individual known as Marcus Holden. Ms. Briggs, if you would walk us through the timeline. Eleanor opened her folder. The first suspicious transaction occurred 8 months ago, a withdrawal of $4,000 made by an individual presenting himself as Cedric Trevan, accompanied by Mrs. Dahlia Trevan. She pulled out a security screenshot, slid it across the table. There they were, Marcus at the window, Dahlia beside him. Over the following months, there were 16 additional withdrawals, ranging from $2,000 to $12,000. Total amount stolen, $63,000. More screenshots, different dates, same scene, Marcus and Dahlia over and over again. In each case, Eleanor continued, The individual presented identification in Mr. Trevan's name. Mrs. Trevan vouched for his identity. The transactions were processed without issue because the impersonation was convincing and the accomplice was the account holder's spouse. Brielle Foster, the lawyer, spoke up. Do we have confirmation that the real Mr. Trevan did not authorize these withdrawals? We do? Eleanor turned to me. Mr. Trevan has provided employment records showing he was at work during every single transaction. We have attendance sheets, time-stamped security footage from the weather station, and witness statements from colleagues. I pulled out my own folder and slid copies across the table. I've also documented every instance where charges appeared on our credit cards that I didn't make, restaurants I never visited, hotels I never stayed at, purchases I never authorized. And Mrs. Trevan's involvement? Lennon roared asked. Detective Heron took over. We've confirmed that Mrs. Trevan has been living a double life. She rented an apartment 4 months ago using funds we can't trace to the joint accounts, suggesting a separate income source. She claimed to work for a consulting firm that has no record of her employment. She's been in a relationship with Marcus Halden for at least 8 months, possibly longer. Do we know how they met? Brielle asked. We're still investigating that. But we do know that Marcus Halden has a prior conviction for identity fraud in Nevada. He served 3 years, was released 18 months ago. Lennon roared, leaned back in his chair. And Mrs. Trevan knew about his criminal history. We believe so. The sophistication of this scheme suggests planning and coordination. Eleanor added, There's also the matter of the life insurance inquiry. Mrs. Trevan contacted Metropolitan Life last week asking about the claims process for Mr. Trevan's $2 million policy. The room went quiet. Brielle Foster looked at me, her expression shifting from professional to concerned. When did this inquiry happen? She asked. The day after I froze the accounts, I said. The day after she realized the fraud had been discovered. Detective Heron pulled out another document. We're treating this as a potential conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, possibly worse. The timing is too suspicious to ignore. What's the next step? Lennon roared asked. We file formal charges against both Marcus Halden and Dahlia Trevan. Conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, theft of funds. The insurance inquiry gives us grounds to investigate whether they were planning something more serious. And Mr. Trevan's assets? Eleanor spoke up. All joint accounts remain frozen pending resolution. Mr. Trevan has already filed paperwork to separate his personal accounts and remove Mrs. Trevan's access. Brielle looked at her notes. From a legal standpoint, this is straightforward. The evidence is overwhelming. The bank will fully cooperate with the criminal investigation. Lennon roared, nodded. Agreed. Ms. Briggs, please prepare a formal statement for the police. Mr. Trevan, the bank owes you an apology. Our security measures should have caught this much earlier. I understand, I said. You trusted my wife. So did I. Detective Heron stood. Mr. Trevan, I'll need you to come down to the station after this to give a formal statement. We'll be executing arrest warrants within the next 24 hours. Both of them? Both of them. I sat there, letting it sink in. Tomorrow, maybe tonight, the police would arrest Dahlia and Marcus. The fraud would be exposed. The lies would be over. One more thing, the detective said. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? I don't think you should be at home when Mrs. Trevan finds out we're coming for her. Rhett's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't noticed him enter. He can stay with me. Everyone turned. Rhett walked into the room, Drake Park behind him. Rhett Weller, Mr. Trevan's legal advisor, and this is Drake Park, who'll be handling the civil litigation. Detective Heron nodded. Good. Mr. Trevan, I strongly recommend you take them up on that offer. I will. The meeting wrapped up quickly after that. Forms were signed, statements were recorded, timelines were confirmed. By 3:30, it was done. I walked out of that conference room knowing everything had changed. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot staring at my phone. There were 3 missed calls from Dahlia and 2 text messages. Where are you? Call me when you get this. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Rhett. It's done, I said. They're filing charges. How do you feel? I don't know yet. Come to my house. Pack a bag first, but don't tell Dahlia where you're going. I drove home slowly, taking the long way, giving myself time to think. The afternoon sun was warm, the sky clear. In my professional life, I would have called this a high-pressure system. Stable, predictable, calm. But I knew what came after high pressure. I knew how quickly conditions could change. The house was empty when I arrived. Dahlia's car wasn't in the driveway. I went upstairs and packed a bag with clothes for a few days, toiletries, my laptop. I took the lockbox from my office closet, the one with all the original documentation. My phone rang. Dahlia, I answered. Hello? Where have you been? She sounded stressed. I've been trying to reach you for hours. I was at the bank. The meeting ran long. What did they say? They're still investigating. Said it might take another week. A pause. A week? Cedric, this is getting ridiculous. I know, but there's nothing I can do about it. Well, I need access to money. I can't just sit here with frozen accounts. Use your personal account. I did. It's almost empty. Then I guess we both have to wait. Her voice got harder. This isn't funny. I have bills to pay. So do I. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there in my bedroom, looking around at the space I'd shared with her for years. The bed we'd slept in, the dresser with photos of us from better times, the window overlooking the yard where we'd talked about maybe getting a dog someday. All of it felt like props now, set pieces in a play I hadn't known I was performing. I grabbed my bag and left. Rhett's house was in a quiet neighborhood 20 minutes away. He met me at the door, took my bag, led me to a guest room on the second floor. Make yourself comfortable, he said. You're safe here. Thank you. Drake's coming over for dinner. We need to talk about next steps. That evening, the three of us sat around Rhett's dining table eating takeout Chinese food and discussing strategy. The criminal charges will take precedence, Drake explained. The police will arrest them, probably within the next day or two. After that, there'll be arraignment, bail hearings, preliminary proceedings. That process could take months. And the civil case? I asked. We'll file for divorce immediately, citing fraud and infidelity. We'll also file a civil lawsuit to recover the stolen funds, plus damages. Between the bank's evidence and the criminal case, we should win easily. Rhett added, the goal is to move quickly and decisively. Don't give them time to hide assets or create new lies. What about the apartment? I asked. The one Dahlia's been renting. We'll include it in the asset discovery. If she's been paying for it with community property funds, you're entitled to half the value of anything she purchased with that money. I pushed rice around my plate. I don't want half. I just want to be done with her. I understand, Drake said, but legally, you're entitled to restitution. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment about what you deserve. My phone buzzed. Another text from Dahlia. We need to talk. Face to face. Tonight. I showed it to Rhett. He shook his head. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let the police handle it. She's going to keep trying. Let her. You're not obligated to answer. But the messages kept coming throughout the evening. First pleading, then angry, then desperate. I know you're hiding something. Whatever the bank told you, it's not what you think. We've been together for years, Cedric. You owe me a conversation. I turned my phone off and went to bed. The next morning, Detective Heron called. We're executing the warrants today. We're picking up Marcus Halden at noon, and we'll get Mrs. Trevan this afternoon. I wanted to give you a heads up. Thank you. Do you want to be notified when we take her into custody? I thought about it. Did I want to know the exact moment when Dahlia's world fell apart? Did I want to imagine her face when the police showed up, when she realized it was over? Yes, I said. I want to know. I'll call you. I spent the morning at Rhett's house, trying to work on weather reports, but mostly just refreshing news sites and checking my phone. At noon exactly, Detective Heron called again. We have Marcus Halden in custody. No issues with the arrest. And Dahlia. We're heading to your house now. Should have her within the hour. I paced around Rhett's living room, watching the clock. Rhett worked at his desk, occasionally looking up at me with concern but saying nothing. At 1:15, my phone rang. We have her, Detective Heron said. She's being transported to the station now. She didn't go quietly. What does that mean? She was argumentative, claimed we had the wrong person, said she'd been set up, standard denial behavior. But she's in custody now, and she'll be arraigned this afternoon. What happens next? Bail hearing, most likely. Given the amount of money involved and the potential flight risk, we'll argue against bail, but ultimately that's up to the judge. After I hung up, Rhett came over and put a hand on my shoulder. How are you doing? I don't know. And I didn't. I felt empty, hollow, like all the emotion had been drained out of me over the past few weeks. That's normal, he said. You've been running on adrenaline and anger. Now that it's done, you're crashing. When does it stop feeling like this? Eventually. Not today, probably not tomorrow, but eventually. That afternoon, Drake arrived with paperwork. I filed for divorce on your behalf, he said, spreading documents across the table. Grounds are fraud, infidelity, and irreconcilable differences. I've also filed a restraining order preventing her from contacting you or accessing any shared assets. How long until it's final? In this state, minimum 6 months. But given the criminal charges, it could take longer. What if she contests it? She can try, but with the evidence we have, no judge is going to side with her on anything meaningful. I signed where he indicated, my signature looking strange and unfamiliar on the divorce petition. Rhett made dinner that night. Pasta and salad, simple comfort food. We ate in near silence, the weight of the day settling over all of us. The arraignment is tomorrow morning, Detective Heron had said in his final call. 9 a.m. You can attend if you want, but you don't have to. I wanted to. I wanted to see Dahlia's face when she stood before a judge and heard the charges read against her. I wanted to watch her realize that everything she'd built on lies was collapsing, but Rhett advised against it. Let the system work, he said. You don't need to be there. It won't change anything, and it might make things harder emotionally. I want to see it. I know you do, but trust me on this. Stay away from the courthouse. Read about it in the official records later, but don't put yourself through watching it happen. I spent the evening going through my phone, deleting photos of Dahlia and me, vacations we'd taken, dinners we'd shared, moments that had seemed real at the time, but now felt like elaborate forgeries. When my phone was empty of her, I felt strangely lighter. The arraignment happened without me. I stayed at Rhett's house, working on weather reports and trying to pretend it was a normal Friday. Drake texted me updates throughout the morning. Both defendants pleaded not guilty. Bail set at $100,000 each. Dahlia's family is trying to post her bail. Should happen this afternoon. Marcus Halden remains in custody. No one posting for him. By late afternoon, Dahlia was free. Electronically monitored, forbidden from contacting me, but free. On Saturday, I went back to my house. Rhett came with me, just in case. The police had already been through, documenting the scene, collecting evidence. Everything looked the same, but felt different. You should change the locks, Rhett said. Today, if possible. I called a locksmith, had them come out that afternoon. New locks on all the doors, new garage code, new security system password, making the house mine again. On Sunday, I went to the weather station. It was closed on weekends, but I had keys. I sat at my desk, looking at the forecast models for the coming week. The storm system I'd been tracking was almost here. Severe thunderstorms, possible tornadoes, heavy rain. It would hit Tuesday night. I prepared the warnings, wrote up the forecasts, sent them to the emergency management office. This was what I was good at. This was what made sense. Monday morning, I went back to work officially. My colleagues greeted me the same way they always did. Margaret, my supervisor, pulled me aside after the morning meeting. Cedric, I heard something on the weekend. About Dahlia being arrested. It's true, I said. She was involved in some financial fraud. I can't talk about the details, but it's being handled. Are you okay? I'm getting through it. She squeezed my shoulder. If you need time off, just let me know. I'd rather work. It helps. And it did. For 8 hours a day, I could focus on isobars and pressure systems and precipitation forecasts. I could lose myself in data and models and predictions. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Trevan? A man's voice unfamiliar. This is Marcus Halden. My hand tightened on the phone. You're not supposed to contact me. I know, but I need to tell you something. Dahlia. She's planning something. She's convinced she can still get access to the life insurance money. How would she do that? I don't know the details. But she's been making calls, talking to people. She's desperate. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm not going down for this alone. She dragged me into this mess, promised me things would work out. Now I'm sitting in a holding cell waiting for trial, and she's out there planning her next move. He hung up. I immediately called Detective Heron and reported the conversation. He listened without interrupting. We'll add the contact violation to his charges, the detective said, but he might be telling the truth about Mrs. Trevan. We'll increase surveillance on her. You think she's actually planning something? I think desperate people do desperate things. And $2 million is a powerful motivator. I spent that evening at home, alone, triple-checking the new locks, setting the alarm, parking my car in the garage instead of the driveway. Tuesday brought the severe weather I'd forecast. Thunderstorms rolled through in the afternoon, heavy rain and high winds. I stood in the weather station, watching the radar, tracking the storm cells as they moved across the region. This was control. This was predictability. This was something I understood. At 5 p.m., my phone rang. Detective Heron. We picked up Mrs. Trevan attempting to access your house, he said. She was seen on your neighbor's security camera trying different keys on your door. I changed the locks. We know, that's why she couldn't get in. But the attempt is a violation of the restraining order. We're taking her back into custody. For good this time? The judge will decide. But with this violation on top of the criminal charges, I'd say her chances of bail just got a lot worse. After the call, I sat at my desk, watching the storm rage outside. Rain hammered against the windows, wind bent the trees, lightning split the sky, and somewhere across the city, Dahlia was being arrested again, her desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage of her lies ending in failure. The eye of the hurricane had passed. Now came the back end of the storm, the final decisive winds that would sweep everything clean. The bank executive meeting was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. Eleanor Briggs had called to request my presence for a final review before the bank filed its formal complaint. I arrived wearing the same suit I'd worn to the first meeting. The conference room was already set up. Same table, same view. But this time there were more people. Eleanor was there, along with Lennon Roard and Brielle Foster. Detective Heron sat at the far end. Rhett Weller was beside me, and across the table, in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit, sat Dahlia. She looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was pulled back messily, her makeup gone. When I walked in, her eyes found mine. I saw anger flash across her face, then desperation. But I felt nothing looking back at her. A man in a cheap suit sat beside her, her public defender. "Mr. Trevan," Lennon Roard began. "Thank you for coming. We've asked Mrs. Trevan to be present for this final review." "Let's begin," Eleanor said. She opened the folder filled with evidence. "The bank has completed its internal investigation. We have documented 17 separate fraudulent transactions over 8 months, totaling $63,000. She slid the security footage screenshots across the table. Dahlia and Marcus, over and over again at the teller window. In each instance, Mrs. Trevan vouched for Mr. Halden's identity as her husband. She was present, complicit, and instrumental in the success of this fraud. Dahlia's lawyer started to speak, but Eleanor held up her hand. "We also have evidence of additional fraudulent activity. Credit card charges at establishments Mr. Trevan never visited, hotel stays during times when he was verifiably at work, a pattern of systematic deception spanning 8 months. Detective Heron spoke next. Mrs. Trevan also rented a secret apartment using funds we cannot trace to legitimate sources. She claimed employment at a consulting firm that has no record of her. She inquired about life insurance claims procedures one day after learning the fraud had been discovered. That inquiry was innocent, Dahlia's lawyer protested. My client was simply... Your client, Detective Heron interrupted, contacted a life insurance company to ask what documentation would be needed if her husband passed away. One day after their bank accounts were frozen, one day after she knew we were investigating. The room went silent. I reached into my folder and pulled out the final piece of evidence, the life insurance policy. I slid it across the table toward Dahlia. $2 million, I said quietly. That's what I'm worth to you. That's what you and Marcus were working toward. Her face went pale. Cedric, that's not... You stood next to him 17 times. You called him by my name. You watched him steal from accounts I spent years building. And when that wasn't enough, when the fraud was discovered, you started asking about life insurance. I stood up, looking down at her. I trusted you. I believed in you. I was boring, predictable, reliable Cedric, easy to fool, easy to manipulate, easy to replace. Rhett put a hand on my shoulder, but I shook it off. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I'd never figure it out. You underestimated me completely. Eleanor pulled out another document. Mr. Trevan has provided this bank with comprehensive documentation of every fraudulent transaction, every lie, every deception. The evidence is irrefutable. The charges stand, Detective Heron said. Conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, theft of funds, violation of restraining order. The district attorney is also investigating the life insurance inquiry as potential conspiracy to commit a more serious offense. Dahlia's face crumpled. I want to make a statement. Her lawyer grabbed her arm. I want to make a statement. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Cedric, please. I made mistakes. I got involved with the wrong person, but I never wanted to hurt you. I stared at her, this woman I'd shared my life with, who'd systematized my destruction while sleeping in my bed. You don't get to do that, I said. You don't get to cry and apologize and pretend this was just a mistake. Lennon Roard cleared his throat. Mr. Trevan, the bank needs to know. Do you wish to press full charges? I looked at Dahlia, really looked at her. The woman who'd stood beside Marcus Halden 17 times, who'd lied about her job, her trips, her entire life, who'd called an insurance company the day after the accounts froze. Yes, I said. Full charges. Everything. Eleanor nodded. The bank will file its formal complaint today. Mrs. Trevan, you will be held financially liable for all stolen funds plus damages. The criminal trial is set for 3 months from now, Detective Heron added. Given the restraining order violation and the severity of the charges, we'll be recommending remand without bail. Brielle Foster pulled out a document. Mr. Trevan has also filed for divorce, citing fraud and infidelity. The bank will provide all evidence to support that petition. I pulled out a pen and the final document Rhett had prepared, the formal statement of account separation, removing Dahlia's name from everything, every account, every asset, every piece of property. I signed it in front of everyone. We're done here, I said. Dahlia was sobbing now, her lawyer trying to calm her. Marcus would face his own trial, his own reckoning. Both of them would pay for what they'd done. I walked out of that conference room with Rhett beside me, leaving behind the woman who'd tried to erase me, the fraud that had failed, the lies that had finally caught up to their tellers. Outside, the sun was shining. The storm had passed completely, leaving clear skies and clean air. Rhett looked at me. How do you feel? I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in months. Free, I said. And for the first time since that phone call and my kit roared, I smiled.